Hello friends, welcome to the next edition of Immersive Outlook. We'll be going to talk about supply chain, about the disruptions, about the challenges, about the learnings, and how we are going to look at it from a perspective of we're planning for the growth, taking into account the resilience and the sustainability aspects as well. I'm very pleased to have my colleague Kunj joining with me today. And we are going to have a fairly insightful discussion with Akhil Saxena. Akhil is looking after the customer fulfillment operations and the worldwide customer service at Amazon. Not an easy shoe to fill in, I can say that. And given the fact that we are seeing so much of disruption along with so much of promise and growth, probably this would be a very, very exciting session for all of us. So with that, I would like to begin the conversation, Akhil. So first of all, Akhil, thank you for joining us today. If you can tell a little bit about your journey, particularly from a perspective of the growth and from the perspective of what has been some of the learnings and challenges in that whole journey, I think that will be great.
So first of all, thank you for the opportunity. I've been with Amazon for almost 10 years now, almost from the time that we started our operations in India. And I think our mission has always been to transform the way that India buys and India sells. And with that as a backdrop, I think a lot of the work that we have been done is by keeping the customer in the center of all our conversation and then working backwards to invent and simplify for them. Right? So how do we look at the interest of the customer, whether customers are people who sell on Amazon, sellers, or people who buy on Amazon like you and me, or people who provide services to us or who buy services from Amazon. I think the challenge has been a blessing in disguise, I would say, because it's an opportunity for us to grow rapidly, and growth is a good problem to have. I think the big pieces for us was for me, I would say, would be to build a very strong team with experience. E-commerce is still very nascent in the country, even after 10, 15 years. And therefore, building a team of professionals who have got a lot of exposure in e-commerce operations, I think that was the first big opportunity and learning for us to say, how do you scale that team? How do you build that team? The other piece I would say would be the infrastructure. To say, when you want to fulfill different kinds of customers, different parts of the country, how do you build the infrastructure? And the journey of infrastructure building has been very exciting for us. The infrastructure part of, hey, we have to keep the inventory of the seller, so build this infrastructure. You have to do it in a manner that you are able to predict what cube that inventory is going to occupy. So books would have a very different cube versus mattresses and sofa sets and dining tables would be very different. And therefore, storage systems would have to be built accordingly. So I think we built the supply chain in different segments. So there's a fresh supply chain, there is a large and heavy bulky supply chain, and then there's a normal consumer business supply chain. So I think building those integral pieces. And then once you have this storage, how do you fulfill the orders? And therefore, finding ways to innovatively fulfill orders in a manner that we can provide speed and reliability to our customers. So 3 elements for us to think about. One is large selection and therefore storage spaces. Second piece, speedy and reliable delivery for our customers and therefore transportation and logistics. And the third is convenience and the security of buying online. I think those were the pieces that we worked our way through. And in logistics, I think we did a lot of work. When I give you a promise to say, I will deliver, if you order by this time, in the next 2 hours, 15 minutes, I'll give it to you tomorrow. In that promise, we are already taking into account a lot of things about where you are, where is the inventory, what is the flight or the train or the bus or the truck that I can put the shipment on? Will you be at home when I come to you? Will you pick up the phone when you are in a meeting or not, when I call you to say I'm going to deliver it? And the fact that it's a promise for a definitive time. And I think building those capabilities were the most exciting part of it. There's been a lot of learning, and a large part of the learning has been how do you operate in a market which is predominantly cash on delivery? How do you operate in a market where address quality is not very great, and therefore you build pseudo addresses or address systems to then say a cluster of building is an address in our systems, and therefore how do you now deliver to that address? And the piece is about ecosystems that can work with us. Therefore, how do we leverage the ecosystem in which we operate, whether it is the mom and pop kirana stores or the entrepreneurs of India who want to be a part of a growth story, and onboarding that as part of a social responsibility. I think those were some of the key challenges and opportunities that we saw.
It's absolutely fascinating the way, Akhil, you explained the entire complexity of the supply chain, particularly connecting the buyers and the sellers, and also the fact that you are actually promising to deliver a certain shipment to a certain customer within a specific time frame. We do a lot of research in terms of looking at the trends from a CEO perspective every year. So this year's PwC Global CEO Survey said that more than 50% of our CEOs are actually very worried about the disruptions which is happening around, as well as the disruptions which is affecting them in their own organization. Given the fact that you are juggling with so many variables and the last mile is not getting simpler by the day, would be great to hear some of your thoughts and experience around how are you dealing with some of these disruptions, which has become more of an order rather than an exception.
Yeah, that's a great question, Sudipto. I think disruptions are here to stay. They're not going away in a big hurry. The last 2.5 years of COVID has told us how disruptive it could be. And supply chains globally are being impacted by it. You look at any kind of supply chain, for example, right now the supply chain in semiconductors is so significantly impacted that even from a small camera manufacturing to a car manufacturing to automation, etc., is all getting impacted and it's delayed. So that's not going away. And I think the piece for us would always be to see how can our supply chains be more resilient and how can they be more agile, and are they providing us an opportunity to invent and innovate? I think those are the three big pieces I would say. So from a resilience perspective, looking at a supply base and saying, where is that supply base? Is it close to point of consumption? Is it close to point of customer? And is there an opportunity to either find alternatives and substitutes or to move the supplier base more closer in terms of stopping imports and being more self-reliant? I think that's one big piece there. The second piece is end-to-end visibility in the supply chains to say, look, what happened to my shipment which is coming from point A to point B? But if you lose visibility of that shipment, you don't know when you're going to get it. And that adds to the anxiety and stresses the supply chain. Therefore, that end-to-end supply chain visibility is going to be a very important thing for anyone, anybody there. The third piece is flexibility, right? How flexible are we? So how quickly can you change your manufacturing practices? How quickly can you change your formulations if you are into manufacturing of cosmetics, color cosmetics, products which have raw materials which are replaceable? I think that flexibility comes in very quickly and that's going to be required. The other piece is that how do you become more self-reliant? And this Atma Bharat is a great way to say, how do we do it ourselves? How do we do it in a manner that we don't depend too much on imports, but we could do it on our own? So I think we just have to embrace this piece. I mean, fighting this to say become more sustainable and be more precise is unlikely to happen. But embracing that to say there will be uncertainties, but how quickly can we move on that uncertainty, I think is going to be the big piece for us globally, I would say.
I wanted to pick up from your first answer, when you talked about your vision to transform the way India buys, the way India sells, and I thought we should add an element which is the way India distributes, right? And picking from that and the self-sustaining, you just launched your cargo airlines, and that's a big move. That's a massive move. Congratulations on doing that. What prompted that? How did you go about what prompted that, and what are some of the big factors that you considered?
I think we have been working with a lot of partners in the airline industry, and we'll continue to partner with others as well. I think we saw the opportunity to serve our customers much better. Our prime customer base is growing in India. Customers are unrelentless. They want to get more and more and more in terms of speed. If it was 2 days, then it's 1 day. If it's 1 day, it's the same day. If it's same day, in an hour, and so on. So people want it faster. And how do we give our customers a great shopping experience where speed and reliability both come hand in hand? I can promise you something, but be unreliable, and that doesn't serve the purpose. So I have to be having the speed and reliability. One of the things we realized is by having our own network of operations in the air, we would be able to push out our customer cutoff ordering times to a later hour, because we have more flexibility on the routines and how the aircrafts are routed. We saw this benefit in North America and Europe. We've been doing this since 2016. We now have almost 110 cities, 110 planes that we operate right now globally. So the benefit for us has been to partner with other people in the airlines industry and take the advantage of their experience, their knowledge in running a plane, but bring in our expertise on network design, customer cutoffs, and therefore have more visibility on the shipments, number one. Number two, a delayed customer promise. That means you can order later in the day so that you can get the shipment next day. I'm not dependent on the commercial carrier airlines, which has a 5 p.m. cutoff, versus saying I can depart this at midnight and still be in Delhi at 4 a.m. in the morning.
You have been a digital first and an AI first organization by all means. What will be some of the specific things which you think has differentiated, and things like, like giving an estimate of when something is going to get shipped, or reliably connecting the physical flow of the supply chain with the information flow of the supply chain. So it will be great to hear some of your perspectives of what you think have been very successful, and also what are some of the new things which are going to come up as well.
Yeah, I would think about data as the first piece, that data pipeline, to say, how do you use all the data that is available to you, and how do you use that to serve the customers more efficiently? And if data is available but it is not connected together, it's hard to make out much out of it, right? Therefore, how do you have a seamless data which flows through across different parts of the supply chain to provide end-to-end visibility? I think that's a piece that many companies are now working on and have succeeded in ensuring end-to-end visibility. So that would be one area that I would talk about. The second piece is in terms of how automation comes into play. And if you go to Google and see some of the work that Amazon has done in terms of robotics, Sparrow is one of the latest features that we built in, allows us to automate tasks which are repetitive and can be done with machines. And then the human intelligence goes behind writing the code and managing those machines. So I think the piece about how do you handle stuff inside a warehouse is another area of where future development is likely to happen. The third piece is logistics. We talked about the airlines. We talked about how it is an important part of the middle mile for us, why it is good for the country. But we have been working with the railways from 2019 now, for the last 3-4 years now, to say, how do we use some of the passenger trains, which are high-speed express trains, to go and move from point A to point B. So from using a Shatabdi train, how do I move from Delhi to Chandigarh by 11 a.m.? And that's a 4-hour, 5-hour journey. But using the trains and railways is a great example of how we are now partnering with the ecosystem, which is also the government, to say, hey, can we work together and partner here? So I think some of those partnerships are also going to become very visible, very powerful, because we connect a physically existing infrastructure with what the future holds for us or what the future needs for us are. The other piece I would say would be, while you talked about automation and technology and AI, is also enabling the seller ecosystem. To say, how does a small seller who's making bamboo handicrafts in Assam be able to sell it across the country? And therefore, how do we enable that person, that seller, to be tech savvy so that they could still put up their picture of the product and sell it on Amazon? And I think some of those would be great enablers for the business there. No one is good at everything, is one of the things I've learned very early in my life. And we have to find the people that we can partner with and play with their strengths and play together.
Given the fact that we are becoming more and more environmentally conscious, we are trying to become more and more inclusive as a society, and it is also getting measured and tracked and even rewarded in many cases in the external world. How do you see the focus on sustainability planning going forward?
I would say sustainability is the right thing. It's the right thing for our planet, for our customers, for the country. And so I would not take that as a constraint, but I would say, how do you use this as an opportunity to invent and innovate, right? In 2020, we made a commitment to have 10,000 electric vehicles as part of our delivery fleet by 2025. We are well on track on that glide path, and we will meet that goal.
Thank you very much, Akhil, for spending the time with us.
Thank you, Kunj. Thank you, Sudipta.
Thank you.